Professor Kostenbaum, you just mentioned free will. When people dialogue deeply and freely about their ultimate concerns, what do they discover? This is what you've taught me from the diamond dialogues that we've had. Number one, and I have 5 points. It's not about indulgence, but responsibility and accountability. In fact, Peter, I think you have a book with those words in the title, right?
Right. Freedom and Accountability at Work with Peter Block.
It's a wonderful book. I use it all the time. Number 2, we're all learners. No one is a knower. Number 3, it's not about pleasure. It's about service. Number 4, I'm not a victim, but a change agent. And number 5, it's not about me. It's about transforming the whole system or whole system organization change. So kindly take a few minutes and comment on these 5 points.
When you deal with this kind of coaching, you are confronted with profoundly painful questions that must have an answer but don't. And so you're dealing with this dilemma that we've got to take care of the pain of living, the tragic sense of life, but there is no answer. So we have to really reframe our whole thinking about the world in which we live. And these 5 formula statements, if you want to, are mnemonic devices, memory devices, to keep in mind that your whole thinking has to change. Now, you gave them in an interesting order. I think I would like to start with the 4th one that you mentioned. I am not a victim, but a change agent. If you are in any position of authority or responsibility, you will find that people have nothing but excuses not to do what you need them to do, and they really believe that those excuses exonerate them of responsibility. But if you have a child that is born with autism or with some deformity or so, you can't just simply say there's a solution to that. No. I may have to live now with a child that wasn't really what I was planning. And that requires a complete readjustment as to what life really is. And you find that that readjustment is your particular readjustment. Everyone has a different readjustment to go through. And the normalcy is really the exception, you might say, that there is no such thing as normal. Everything is its own exception. So that people feel legitimately in these very harsh times that they're victims, and they are victims. But you will remain a victim forever if that's what you keep thinking, unless you say that I'm not going to wait until the world changes. I'm not going to wait until the world is fixed. But I'm going to be one of those people who's going to fix the world. I am going to think of myself as a change agent or teach about change agency or what have you. But I will take the toughest issue in my own life that can't be resolved and make that the centerpiece of my life to change that. I'll become an expert on that particular field. And that shift from being a victim to the expert who deals with victimhood, and nothing changes maybe dramatically in the physical situations, but my attitude is so fundamental that it does change everything that can possibly change. And that is not to be minimized, but it is a central aspect of the human condition. We tend to minimize that.
It's freeing.
Well, exactly. It is a resolution. You will stop complaining and whining about something that is really very, very tragic. You will make it your business to find ways of addressing it. and then you will become a hero. You will become strong, and you will find that that life is like that. It isn't that you happen to have a problem and have to make this adaptation. Life is like that, and people who think that everything is resolved have some shocks ahead of them. That's called the loss of innocence.
Next point.
Now, well, you see, it's not about indulgence, but responsibility and accountability. That is the meaning of happiness. Happiness is not self-indulgent pleasure and all of that. That may be fine, but you get the deepest happiness out of doing something that no one else can do but you, and is desperately needed and maybe impossible to you, but you're going to handle that. You're going to address that issue, and you pick that issue. You decide what that is, and you are going to make a difference, and no one else is going to make a difference. And you're going to make a difference to that particular situation, and no one else is able to make a difference. And that's where your happiness lies, and that's a redefinition of everything. And that's what takes your freedom. You take your freedom to realize that there is no expert, no knower, that we're all learners. Some may have spent more time being learners than others, but you take a heck of a lot more responsibility, and you choose that freely if you are a learner, than if you have some knower and you expect to be somebody is going to tell you something that is known. Now that applies to the issues of living, not necessarily to scientific issues or issues of skill, but this applies to issues of character, the issues that have to do with leadership, you see. And it's not about me. It's about the totality. I'm not really here to learn and dialogue about how to make my life better. I'm going to make my life better if I am able to serve and make a difference and really make the lives of others different. That's how I achieve my success. Those principles work if you take them seriously. And from that follows two formulas that I think are really powerful. STEM, which is the being in love with science, technology, engineering, and math. And that's okay. That's okay. But they don't solve problems. Science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, is not the answer. But the answer is the spirit and the attitude and the energy of those people that have created science, technology, engineering, and math, and utilize those to keep in, you might say, in being the energy of living and the energy of helping people. That is the answer, that there are people who are inventing science, technology, engineering, and math and applying it in the right way, in a productive way, and not a destructive way. So leadership is not an engineering thing, and the effort in engineering training is a good vehicle, but it takes now a person of character and a person of maturity to keep that alive and to use it the way it needs to be used. And I like to quote Kenneth Rexroth, the American poet: "Against the ruin of the world, there's one defense, the creative act." Whenever there's something that you cannot deal with, you act, you do something to address it. And that is your glory. And that's what life is really all about. That's where the focus is. And we forget that often. And in forgetting it, we destroy ourselves.
You are absolutely remarkable. I understand why Peter Block says now that you're the person who has had the greatest influence on his life. Now, Professor Kassenbaum, I want to do something radical and revolutionary. I'd like to have you talk about the dynamics of organization change and the leadership diamond in terms of social justice stuck points that we're dealing with today in this world.
Well, that is, of course, a huge task.